Sarah Thompson, and welcome back to STL TV Live. It's high time that we all started working together for a better future. I'm happy to welcome Marius Johnson from Better Together, a grassroots project sponsored by the Missouri Council for a Better Economy. So, Better Together, the name, I won't say the name gives it all away, but tell me specifically what this is all about, what this project's about.
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me. Better Together is a grassroots project of the Missouri Council for a Better Economy, like you mentioned, and we were really formed out of the growing interest in St. Louis City and County about the fragmented nature of government in those two areas. There are currently 115 different government entities delivering municipal services to 1.3 million residents in St. Louis City and County, and they spend about $2 billion a year doing that. You sort of alluded to our name. The name actually indicates that, you know, whatever our future looks like, whether that is some level of cooperation between the city and the county or the current situation, we know that whatever happens, the future is determined better together. And we're really looking to do the research to figure out what is the best way to have our region move forward. So we'll be doing several studies over the course of the year to answer some basic questions and try to get some information so people can have that conversation.
Right, so let's talk about, you're essentially collecting data.
Yes.
And talk about the areas that you're collecting data in, because obviously when people talk about the city-county merger, public safety is the big one that comes up, but you're looking at a lot of different areas.
Right, that's a great point. And so we'll be doing studies over 6 areas. The first is public finance, and we actually released our public finance study this last week. The next one that we're starting is economic development. Then we'll move into public health, public safety, as you mentioned, parks and recreation, and then general infrastructure. And really, we're going to be asking 4 questions about those areas. The first is, what is the current status? How do we do things now? The next will be, what are the national best practices? What are the best practices in the region? Third is, how do we compare to those best practices? And then finally, what are some scenarios for moving forward? We, again, want to be able to start this conversation, to have an inclusive and transparent conversation with the region so that those conversations can be had, and those interested in putting forward proposals can do so in an informed way to determine what is the future of our region.
Does any data exist? Because obviously this discussion continues to come up and has over the years, but when it does, what are people referencing? Just their ideas, or is there, and obviously what's on public record, of course, about finances, but is there any other data that has been done in this area, or will this project be the first?
Well, you know, I think there's been some studies from outside companies focused on a few different areas. You know, there have been studies on economic development, for instance, but there have been none to look at all the areas of government, of municipal government functions in the city and the county in the way that we're doing it. We're doing what we're called community-based studies, and so we're really focusing on getting the input of residents from both the city and the county to make sure that we are really having the voices of the people who interact with the governments included in those studies. I'll give you an example of the data that we're doing. So for the first study, public finance, we asked cities for their comprehensive annual financial reports, or their CAFRs, and their budgets and some other documents, and compiled that information into one document so that everyone could see how much we as a region, St. Louis City and County, are spending every year. How much debt do we have as a region? And that we can compare it against what are the best practices and really look at this to see how we as a region might move forward and what the future might look like. So in short, the answer to your question is, no, the data hasn't been gathered before. There have been small instances, but there hasn't really been a central location for that information, and we're hoping to serve as that.
Because your research is community focused and you're gathering, you know, the feedback from the community, what are you hearing so far when this topic comes up? I mean, you know, and when I went and we were talking before we went on camera about different people have different thoughts. So if you talk to a family, it might be more about public safety. If you talk to a small business owner or even a corporate, a CEO, they might have certain views on a city-county merger. What type of things are you hearing from the community?
Well, you know, to be honest, we haven't heard a lot yet.
Okay.
We are just in the beginning phases of our intensive outreach for the community-based studies. Again, the first study was public finance, which is very much in the numbers and not so public-friendly, just because it's not super exciting. But it was the necessary first step in laying the foundation and if we're going to have this conversation. We have begun meeting with some small business owners and business associations and chambers of commerce around the city and county, and we will continue to ramp up those efforts over the coming weeks as we get deeper into our economic development study. But one of the things we're really hearing preliminarily is just the interesting differences of experience that business owners and entrepreneurs have in the various entities around the region. There's very different processes for what it's like to start the business, what are the requirements in a different municipality, and it's been an interesting find, and we're really excited to see what more we hear and what are those really big issues that are hindering growth or helping growth in the region.
Well, I want to talk more about some of the areas that you're looking at in the project and the study. So we're going to take a quick break, but we're going to have more with Marius Johnson, so keep it right here on STL TV Live.